There's a really difficult conversation that happens often in the ethical and fair trade space, and it's a conversation around respect and getting rid of a savior complex when it comes to sharing the stories of artisans and men and women in vulnerable situations. It's a fine line to walk. The stories of these beautiful people are important and they should be heard, but they should never be exploited for sales or personal gain. Seeing these artisans for the people that they are, the humans that they are, and how they deserve respect and dignity in all situations, it's so important. It's not about going in and being that rich American or rich first world person, saving them from their plight. It's about empowering them and lifting them up to share their talents and skills with the world. Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of stillbeingmolly.com, and this show's all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, CEO, community leader, or just an amazing person who is trying to make a positive impact, not only through their personal life, but also with their professional career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact right where you are. My guest this week is Abby Alley, the founder of Zuri Collection. Abby and I had an amazing conversation, and we tackled everything from discussing how we should be sharing the stories of artisans to what it really looks like to humble ourselves and listen. This is an episode you are not going to want to miss a second of. So without further ado, on to my conversation with Abby. Hey, Abby, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you on the show, and I'm so excited to get to know you. It's like one of the things that I just look forward to so much about this podcast and doing this podcast is I feel like I get to make so many new friends all across the country and the world. And it's like, you know, I always like to tell people it's as though we are sitting down to coffee, or let's be honest, I don't drink coffee, so a Diet Coke.
You don't? Oh,
or talk.
Yes.
I know I'm weird. People always say to me, "What? You don't drink coffee?"
Probably healthier. So.
Well, I drink Diet Coke, so I don't know that it's really that much of a trade-off, so it's fine. I say life is all about balance.
Exactly.
I'm like,
anything in moderation.
I exercise, I eat well, and I drink Diet Coke. It's fine. Although, okay. On a side note, I digress, but it's really funny because I had a friend the other day, or actually multiple friends, who have sent me this article about this woman who just turned 104. And she's 104 and she doesn't look a day over 85. Like, I mean, so she looks old, but I would not say that she looks 104. And she's still pretty active. And she says she attributes her longevity to her daily Diet Cokes, which I just think is hilarious.
Well, there you go.
I know. And then all my friends have sent it to me and they're like, see, maybe she has the secret fountain of youth. She's onto something. So maybe you'll luck out too. I'm like, hey, it's all, again, life's all about balance. Anyway, I digress. So Abby, we are going to get past the discussion of coffee and Diet Coke, and we're going to dive right in and get to know you and Zuri Collection. So I'm going to have you kick us off and do what all my guests do, and that's give us the Abby 101. So tell us your story, and then for those that are unfamiliar with Zuri Collection, tell us all about what you and Zuri Collection do.
Sure. Okay. So I've been listening to some of your podcasts for, probably like 6 months now.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
And it's always, this part is always so fun to kind of hear people's backstories.
It is.
I'll try not to ramble on and on. So feel free to just cut me off anytime.
You are good.
So I am from Chicago. I grew up in the suburbs, and I've really always lived here in Chicago. I went to Northwestern, which is right here in Evanston, which is like right outside Chicago. And then right after college, I taught in the city for about 6 years. And and then I've been living in the city. I'm in Logan Square right now for the past like 12 years. I feel like it's crazy how fast time flies.
It really does.
Like I had my 10-year college reunion a few years ago, and I just that snuck up on me, and I just couldn't believe how fast time flies. But so anyways, my sort of life with Fairtrade kind of began, maybe about gosh, this is 2018, almost about 5 years ago, I would say. My family took a kind of a family vacation to Tanzania on safari. And that was probably the most amazing experience ever. We spent about 2 weeks out in the bush in the Serengeti. And I just fell in love with the culture and with the country. And about a year and a half later, I decided to actually go teach in Tanzania. And so I spent like 3 months there only, but it was sort of enough time to really kind of dive in and really get to know people and feel like I could really experience what daily life was like. I lived with a family and then taught in a local school. And it was really through that experience that I started to understand a little bit more about global poverty. Forever, I had been so invested in sort of urban issues here in Chicago, and it was really that experience that kind of opened my eyes to more of the global injustice that was going on. And really, I was only able to scratch the surface. I was only there for a few months, so I had a lot of learning to do, but definitely piqued my interest, and I feel like God really grew my heart in that way. And when I got back, I sort of started thinking. So I was 30 years old when I did that experience, and I started thinking to myself, gosh, like, what 30-year-old gets to just like kind of take a hiatus in their career, have this experience, and like I want to now do something. Like what can I now do so that that's not just like a blip in my life.
Right.
So I started just like praying about it, thinking about it, and of course, I was really thinking along the lines of education because that's really what my background is in. Mm-hmm. But that really, I wasn't really feeling any sort of pull in that way. I didn't really want to just pick up and move there full time, nor did I feel like that was sort of like a call for me to do that. And so as sort of like the weeks kind of kept going by, I then learned about Noonday Collection, and I know you know about Noonday.
Yeah. Jessica she is amazing, and I've been a huge fan of them for a long time.
Yeah, so I became an ambassador actually with Noonday
awesome.
The fall of 2014. So then for about 2.5 years, I was a Noonday ambassador, and gosh, that just opened my eyes so much to really what Fairtrade is doing in communities. And really more, even the power of our purchases, like that everything that we buy, from our coffee to my shoes to the pillow I put on my couch, everything, like thinking about the whole supply chain behind that was, I had sort of known about Fairtrade, but I hadn't really gotten into it and really understood just the whole story of every single person that is behind every single product. And then I think, like many people in the fair trade world, the documentary, The True Cost, was recommended to me, I think probably by another ambassador.
Yes.
And so I watched that. It was the fall of 2015 that I watched that. And that was one of those things that, once you see something, you can't unsee it.
Yes.
Once you learn something, you can't unlearn it. So that for me was a huge turning point. And I think just prior to that, I had also read the book called Half the Sky. I don't know.
Yes. I have talked about that book to so many people.
Okay.
And I know I've spoken about it on this podcast a couple times too, because it's one of those books that once you read it, you can't unread it, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So for those listening, obviously you need to watch The True Cost and read Half the Sky. So just saying.
Highly recommend.
Yeah.
And in the book Half the Sky, I remember, I think it was in this book, I was trying to remember if it was a book or if it was like Half the Sky did a documentary too that I watched. I can't remember exactly where I heard this, but whomever said that, we are implicated in the lives of people, even if we don't know them and even if we don't know that we are. Yeah. And it just made me think about, the injustices that are going on, in the fashion industry and really in any sort of like garment industry, in all over the world, and the things that I might be doing that I might not even know that I'm doing that are impacting in a negative way lives, countless lives. And so just made me start thinking about my own choices as a consumer, and made me that much more passionate about my work as a Noonday ambassador. But then it really had me start thinking about, okay, I know all these people in Tanzania who, the biggest thing I saw when I was living there was so many people have a skill, whether it's in artisanship or whether it's, farming or whatever. And it was just a lack of jobs. And, I would see these sweet moms, sitting on the side of the road with their congas, which was like their fabric that they'd wrap their skirts in, but then they'd have extra put down with their tomatoes or their avocados or whatever they had been growing. And, I'd walk to school and there they would sit selling them. And I'd walk home from school and they'd still be sitting there selling them. And, a lot of times it didn't look like they sold more than a couple tomatoes a day. And it just really had me thinking, like, here they are working as hard as they can, but there's just not enough customers.
Right.
So anyways, as I was learning more and more about fair trade, started thinking about, okay, what would it mean to do something in this country that I love, where I've made relationships? What would it be like to, create more opportunity for them to sell their products here? So actually, a couple Noonday ambassadors were really helpful for me in the early stages of just helping me sort of be encouraged to even dream in this way. I felt like, who am I to have these ideas? Like, what am I doing? I'm a teacher. I don't know the first thing about having a business. But Annie Phillips, I don't know if you know the Sparrow Studio, but Annie Phillips,
she's amazing.
So she was one of the first people I talked about, and she was one of the first people I talked about Zuri with, and she was just so encouraging and really made me think it was something that was worth doing and made me think that it was something I could do. So I'm just so thankful for some of those women early on who were encouraging and cheering me on in these initial thoughts. And then the summer of 2016, I went back to Tanzania to see, like, okay, could this even be a possibility? I had created an LLC and done sort of the things I needed to do on that end and booked a flight and said some prayers like, God, if you want me to do this, will you create an opportunity for me to meet someone, for me to feel like when I come home, I have a solid relationship with someone? And he delivered, and he really opened doors for me to work with about 5 different groups. And
wow.
So I felt like, okay, this is a go. I'm going to do this. And then October 2016 is when I launched the website. And so we work with men and women in Tanzania and Kenya, and we sell mostly bags and baskets and some jewelry. And yeah, we're about a year and a couple months in, and so yeah, that's kind of the story.
I think it's amazing. And the fact that, like you said, after you went to Tanzania for that time, and I think what your story is, as far as, I mean, obviously not everybody goes to Tanzania and spends 3 months there. But I feel like on a larger, more, if we're really looking at it on a larger scale or on a more like kind of broad metaphorical scale, everybody has that experience in their life that changes them in some way, whether it's they go on an international trip or they go on a missions trip, or they, they volunteer in their community, or they meet somebody completely different from them and really learn a lot. Or, maybe it's just a really bad experience at a job. I mean, there's all these types of events in our lives that shape how we view and how we see the world. And so often we leave those experiences wanting to see something different or wanting to do something different. And, maybe, just thinking about the current, climate of our culture and our country right now. I mean, there's so much, I don't want to get political, but there's just so much tension right now in our country, and people want to see the good in others. They want people to come together and unify and all this kind of stuff. And so you have these people who are just sort of mouths on social media and in newspapers and on TV and at around the dinner table. You have people who are mouths and they say things and they're like, well, this should change and this should change and something should happen here. But instead, who are the people that are actually getting up and doing something and saying, okay, I'm going to not just sit here and be a mouthpiece for this. I'm going to actually do something. And so I say all that to say that it's a broader issue of when you have a life-changing experience or you see an injustice in the world or you see an opportunity, instead of just sitting back and saying, man, somebody should really do something about it.
Yeah.
Getting up and saying, oh, maybe that person is me. And so I really admire that you took that initiative, because so many people don't. And so many people have that idea. They have that $1 million idea and they sit on it and then they take it to their grave. And then they say, what if? So I think that's really amazing. And the fact that you were just able to really persevere and push through the challenges, I think is incredible.
Thanks. I think, like you said, I was totally nervous to, venture out and start a business because it's something so outside my comfort zone. But I just remember being so grateful for the opportunity to be in Tanzania, and remember thinking, not everyone gets to do this. And so I can't just let this opportunity pass me by to be able to, be a voice, to be advocating for people, to shine a light on Fairtrade, and even to expose people to the culture in Tanzania and in Kenya. I mean, those are some of the most beautiful places I've ever been, with some of the most beautiful people I've ever met. And, I just think to make the world a smaller place and to make the world a more accepting and loving place, it's like we have to build connections. Because, when we know someone, when we have a common understanding of someone, then fear isn't allowed to grow. We come from a place of compassion when we have a common bond. So I'm hoping to be able to, I feel like I started Zuri with sort of two missions. One was to really provide like higher end, really well made pieces that are fair trade. I really wanted to kind of dispel the myth that fair trade pieces are just crafty or like, oh, isn't that sweet? They made that by hand. And I really wanted to show the quality of products and the ingenuity and the creativity and just the amazing level at which these men and women are able to design and make things. They're so resourceful, so resilient, and whether or not an item is fair trade, I wanted it to sort of be like, oh, and guess what? It's also fair trade, but like I have to have that bag because they like it so much.
Yes. And I have that exact conversation with so many people because I think that is such a common thread among people who are passionate about fair trade and ethical, because we're just like, no, it's not. It's almost like you want to be product first, because you want people to fall in love with the product and then know that their purchase is making a difference. You don't want a pity purchase. And the artisans don't want a pity purchase.
Right. No, they really don't. They really want you to like it, and they take so much pride in their work. And
they do.
And they're certainly like so excited to see when, our customers like their products, but they also for sure want the feedback if there's something they can make it better or tweak it in one way or another. And so you're absolutely right.
So I have spent a lot of time in Kenya, and I have I've developed some relationships there. I mean, I call them my family. Like they're my sisters and brothers from another mothers and misters. And like I just love them so much. And I've been working with a nonprofit there that is through my church, but it's a amazing nonprofit that has Kenyan run. It's, obviously we have, sort of the U.S. team, but, there's a team, the Kenyan team that is on the ground running it. And one of the things, I mean, it's very early stages, but we've been working on sort of incorporating an artisan group type aspect into this. And it's been really interesting as I have now personally been learning how to balance that side of things of, like you were saying, how do you balance encouraging them to take pride in their work because they do. But then when something does need improvement, or, how do you balance that of being you want them to produce a better product when you're like, okay, this is a good start, but this is not sellable. So how do you encourage, explaining that to them in a way that I'm proud of you. You are coming a long way. You're doing great. I can't sell this. So you know what I mean? And so that's a challenge. And in a lot of ways, it's created great conversations because now it's giving them an opportunity to say, okay, how can we improve and we refine our own skills? And how do we, it's also encouraging them to take initiative among each other. And it's amazing to watch them challenge each other as colleagues. And, when one woman is really excelling in beadwork and another woman is really excelling in textiles and sewing, they really take that leadership on, and the other women follow suit because they want to learn and they want to get better. And so that's so cool to see when they start to really just grow and they become autonomous, because you don't want them to depend on you at any time. But it's a challenge. And I think what you have done is a really great example of balancing, working with these groups, but also just creating beautiful products. Thanks.
I think, for me, what was important in the design, portion of it is to make sure that the design reflects some cultural aspects, but also that it would be sellable to a kind of a more mainstream market here. And that's always a balance because, I guess even just colors are a lot more bright and vibrant in Kenya and Tanzania. And here oftentimes, if I'm left to choose between the black sweater and the purple sweater, I'm probably going to choose the black one. It's just safer. We tend to go for neutrals, unless, you're looking for that statement piece. But so that's the conversation that we're always having with some of our artisan partners, is just the American taste and the American style, and really wanting to make sure that it has nothing to do with something that's better or worse. It's just something that's different. And we can have a good laugh about it, oh, silly Americans, we like things plain, or, things like that. Yeah, they always,
we have very hilarious conversations about that because they're just like, why don't you like that? And but it's funny though, because while I do tend to reach for neutrals, I personally love African wax print fabric and kitenge fabric, which is for listeners who don't know what that is, it's the kind of the typical fabric that you think of when you think of African prints, and they're just beautiful and bright and bold. And so it's funny because I do typically in my day-to-day wardrobe, I have color in my wardrobe, but I do tend to prefer, I think, more neutral pieces that then I dress up, I think, with really bright earrings or really bright necklace or a bright bag. And so I tend to reach for those. Every time I go to Kenya, I'm like, take me to the fabric market because it's my favorite. It's my favorite something place. When you're there. It's the most it just fun. Makes you so happy as you walk through. You're like, I will take this fabric, and I will take this fabric, and I'll take this fabric because it's.
I know there's so many beautiful ones.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. So we do have some products made with kitenge, but I think. For most of our customers, there's only so many pieces that they're going to buy that have kitenge. So, we're always looking to help those artisan partners who are seamstresses, kind of help them branch out to see what other materials they can use and mix and match, maybe throw in some canvas or some leather to sort of elevate the look, or even just, hopefully have a little bit more of a broad spectrum of things that they can make and sell, even in their own shop there in Tanzania. It just helps to constantly be improving your craft.
Absolutely. I also love the name. So Zuri means beautiful in Swahili. And I just think that is not to belabor the point. It's a beautiful way to tie it all together and, to really showcase the artisans, showcase the work, showcase the whole story. Is that what made you, like, did the name come to you right away, or when did you decide on the name?
Yeah, so I actually at first I was tossing around the name Nafasi, which means opportunity.
Ooh.
And people could not remember it. Like my family members, my friends, they kept saying like Nasafi, like what? So I was like, okay, that's not going to work. So then, yes, came across Zuri. And so Zuri like can mean beautiful and it can mean good in different contexts in Swahili. Yeah. And so either way, it was kind of the perfect word to sum up sort of the heart behind the vision of the company. I wanted something, this may get to be a long story, but I am really passionate about making sure that the stories I tell and how we tell the stories of our artists and partners, that they don't come across in any sort of way of like, oh, like, good job, us Americans, for helping Africans. Yeah. I really want to be cognizant of the way the messaging comes across. And so I felt like with Zuri, meaning beautiful or meaning good, and I kind of went with the beautiful route because I feel so strongly that the stories of the women and men and of the countries that we're working in, they are so beautiful. And sometimes like in our brokenness is really where the beauty is. And, we all have broken stories, whether we're from, Chicago or from Tanzania or from anywhere else in the world. And so I really want to create this, connection where it doesn't feel so far away, that when we, when our customers learn more and more about our artists and partners, that they can really resonate with their stories and they can see themselves in their stories and they can understand that we really are more similar than we are different, and that there's beauty in every story, in every situation. And then in the products themselves is, sort of like wearing the bag or having the baskets in your home is being able to sort of share this beautiful story with whomever is in your life, sort of like bringing the story across the world, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I would actually love, if you don't mind, I would love to kind of dive into that for kind of that topic for a few minutes, because I think it's an important topic, and it's one that I feel honestly that I've grazed over with a few people on the podcast, but I haven't talked necessarily a little more extensively about it, because this is an issue I too am extremely passionate about, and that is, again, respecting the messaging that brands, especially in the fair trade and ethical space, take. Because, and I think especially, like I was mentioning earlier, the climate that we live in, we need to be careful. And I'd say I just say collectively, we need to be careful as to how we are approaching things. And we're not treating, we're being sensitive to how people's stories are being told. I mean, everything from a survivor of human trafficking to a sexual assault victim, which is obviously very timely right now, to the story of somebody rising from poverty in America or internationally. And it's delicate because you want to be able to tell these stories.
Right.
But even more importantly, you want their story to be respected and honored. Oh, I even had this conversation with somebody else about adoption and the, adopted children and the parents of adopted children, not, almost exploiting the story of their adopted kids, if that makes sense. And I've heard so often from adoptive parents when they just say, oh, I adopted my daughter from Haiti. I'm not going to share anything else because her story is hers to share when she's ready. And I think that's amazing. And I think that's a really important discussion as to why that's important. And so I don't know if you'd like to kind of share a little bit from your perspective as somebody who has, you worked in Tanzania, you launched this business, you are working with artisans in both Tanzania and Kenya. What has that experience been like for you? Where did you kind of first learn about it, and why is it, in your opinion, important?
Yeah. Gosh, so many things in my head right now.
Yeah, it is kind of a heavy topic, but
how do I organize my thoughts?
Like I said, I think it's important to talk about it and explain why it's something that's so important.
Yeah, I think, okay, I'm going to say something that, people may not love, but I've been learning a lot about my white privilege in the past few years. And yeah, so I guess that has been just sort of like on the forefront of my mind with, things domestically with the Black Lives Matter movement and just sort of like you're saying, the ongoing sort of culture that we're living in. And just trying to be more and more cognizant and aware of my privilege just because I'm white. Not that I've done anything to deserve it or to earn it.
Right.
It just is what it is.
Yes.
And so because of that, I think we've probably all heard stories of like the white savior complex, where, people may think, I'm going to go to this country and probably very well-meaning, but I'm going to go to this country, whether it's, in Africa or in Asia or wherever. And I'm going to go help those people, those poor people. And without really understanding the people who are there.
Yes.
And so there's a book called When Helping Hurts.
Yes.
And I can't remember who wrote that book.
Yes, I have that book, and I tell anybody who's going on a mission trip to read it before they go. It's required reading.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
It is I'm writing, I just Googled it. When Helping Hurts, it's alleviating poverty without hurting the poor and yourself. And it's by Steve Corbett, Corbett. And I will have the link to where you can get this book in the show notes. It's on Amazon. You can get it pretty much anywhere. Another one I'm going to just say real quick is Toxic Charity.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
And it's the subtitle is How Churches and Charities Hurt Those They Help and How to Reverse It.
Yeah.
Those two books in and of themselves they've vastly impacted my approach to, like, even when I go to Kenya. And I've been 3 times now, and I have deep relationships with people there that, they, when some of them have come here, they come to my home. And I have relationships with these people. So, but even still, it is how I see the world and the lens I see things through. So yes, When Helping Hurts and Toxic Charity. Again, I will have the links to those 2 books in the show notes.
I'll have to read Toxic Charity. I haven't read that one, but I think that one of the takeaways is that we really need to position ourselves as learners and listeners when we come from positions of privilege. Rather than people who think that they have the answers, they can go in and help and change things and fix things, even if it's totally well-meaning. There needs to be more of a position of humility, in that the people who actually live in those places know what those places need way better than me or anyone who, may live here. And so I guess with all that in mind, I just want to always be cognizant of that Zuri is, that I'm not the one making these products. The people who are making these products are the ones who should be celebrated, are the ones who should be deserving of any credit. And there isn't this isn't a charity. This isn't like we're buying these products and like, oh, good job us, like we're helping these people. Certainly the purchasing of Zuri products is helpful for their businesses. Absolutely. And that is something to feel good about. But, sometimes I feel like in Fairtrade, the sadder the story, the more the more people want to buy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want people to see the people that I'm working with as a sad story. You know, I want people to see these people for who they really are, these amazing, talented, just genius people. And, you know, the goal is for them to be able to gain more and more opportunities. Like, I don't want them to stay in poverty. And so it's like, I want to be able to tell their success stories.
Yes.
And for it not to feel like, oh, okay, well, they're not really in need anymore. So let's move on to something else. And it's like, no, if their business is successful in Kenya or in Tanzania, then guess what? That means they can hire more people. That means their communities are going to be flourishing that much more. That means their kids can go to a better school.
Amen.
You know, and so I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Absolutely. I highly recommend going. And do you know Clothed in Hope?
That sounds familiar.
So Clothed in Hope, Amy Barty is the founder. And so she was on episode 32 last April. And one of the things, they work in Zambia, and one of the things I loved about her is that she very intentionally essentially worked her way out of a job.
That's awesome.
But she obviously still does fundraising. They are actually a 501c3, and she still does fundraising here on the American side. But she was in Zambia for a long time. Not a long time, but quite a bit of time. And her whole goal was to get Clothed in Hope and the women in Zambia completely self-sustaining, to the point that if she needed to step away, they would still be successful and they would still be able to run on their own. And they're at that point. And so she talked about how it was a very strange feeling to work her way out of a job and work her way out of needing to be there. So she then came back to the States, and she's now here and does, the fundraising side and does a lot of the marketing here on the state side. But as far as Clothed in Hope in Zambia, they're running smooth. That's their,
awesome.
And so we had a really fun conversation about what that looked like and why that was so important to her, because that is ultimately what is sustainable. And that's one of my goals with kind of the project that I'm working on right now, is how do we get to that point of creating an opportunity where they're completely self-sustainable and I'm not needed and we're not needed. And it's not like I say that in it's not like I'm needed right now. But
no, totally. But where they if you stepped away, that their business would still be flourishing.
Correct. And really, and I don't like to sound this, I feel like this sounds all like Christianese, but I mean, really truly coming alongside them and figuring out, okay, here you have these amazing skills and you have this beautiful talent for, again, whether it's beadwork or jewelry or design or, sewing, tailoring. You have this incredible talent now, but you are needing more support in how to actually run a business. And that's the same type of support we need here. Because
that's just normal support.
Exactly. When I set out and ventured on my own to be my own, be self-employed, I didn't know the first thing about business. I was an English major. I taught high school English for a couple years. I was a comedian. I didn't know the first thing about taxes and making sure that I was, filing my, quarterly estimated taxes and keeping monthly books and a monthly business budget and how to hire people. I mean, I didn't know the first thing about that. So I needed help. I needed somebody to come alongside me, and thankfully, that's my husband and my dear friend Abby, who is my bookkeeper. And, I've now gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, so I'm really terrible at this. So I'm going to hire somebody
Someone else needs to do it.
To do it for me. But it's the same type of thing. And it's going in there and really just saying, hey, you have a skill, you have a product, we have a market for it.
Exactly.
How do we bridge the two? So I think that's such an important conversation to be having. And I thank you for kind of sharing your general thoughts on it. And I like what you said too about being careful about not having that white savior complex and seeing people for who they really are. And when I have this conversation with people, I say, I mean, just think about what if you were here and all of a sudden a group, a missions group from India came over and came into your neighborhood and just told you how to do things.
Exactly.
Like, how would
exactly what it's like.
You would look at them and be like, are you
we're
crazy?
all good here. We've got it under control.
You crazy? What?
Yeah.
And so it's really more, how do you develop relationships? How do you see people for their differences and respect those differences? We all have strengths. We all have differences. And how do we bring those things together and make something amazing?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think the biggest thing I've learned is just because it's not the way I did things doesn't mean it's a bad way to do things.
Amen, girl. Amen. Preach.
Yeah.
Preach. I'm just saying. Well, so before we transition into kind of the lightning round portion of the podcast where I get to know you a little bit more and we just kind of have some fun, I'm going to let everybody know that I will have the links to those books that we mentioned, the links to Zuri Collection, and to connect with Abby in the show notes. So you can check all of that out. And I believe Abby is also going to have a coupon code for my listeners. So I will have that in the show notes as well. So
yes. And just one more exciting thing that Zuri is doing this season is we are transitioning from being just a retail shop online to a wholesale company.
Ooh.
So I'm really excited for this spring summer collection, which will launch in February. So that's kind of like what's on the horizon and really looking forward to seeing how that goes.
That's so exciting.
I know. Yeah. We're going to bring our bags and our baskets. So we'll see.
So exciting. It's the next big step.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, Abby, this is the portion of the show where we just get to know each other a little bit better. And actually, I just get to know you a little bit better because let's be honest. And so this is also the portion of the show where my husband, my lovely and talented, I'm just kidding, he's not, I mean, he is lovely, but let's be handsome and talented husband inserts his desired sound effect to transition us to the lightning round.
Why are you looking at me like that?
You're falling for this broad.
No! I just met her.
Exactly. I'm gonna go.
You can't go.
Watch me. Watch me take this on down the road.
Okay, so this first question is, if you could steal credit for any great piece of art, song, film, book, which one would you claim credit for?
I'm choosing a category or an actual title.
It could be an actual title. It could be either or. Like, I actually had somebody give me an author. Like, they just wish they could be this author. But I had somebody else who just gave me, like, a specific piece.
Let's see. I think it would be really fun to be able to take credit for probably a song. I feel like that would be really cool to be able to be a songwriter. But I am so not a songwriter, and I'm not like a music. Like, I don't even know like names of songs or names of singers. I'm really bad at that. So maybe I should go with a book or something like that. But I think it'd be really cool to be a singer.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody has that dream at some point in their lives where they're in the shower and they're like, I could totally be a multi-platinum record artist.
Oh, yeah. I definitely had that moment. But
yeah,
lots of people have told me you cannot be. So that's okay.
I love it. All right. So since you said you're not really, you're not big into like specific artists. What do you listen to? Are you big on like audiobooks? Are you big on podcasts? And if so, if we hooked up your phone, what would be like recently played?
Probably, I'm trying to think of what is it called? The How They Built It podcast.
How I Built This?
How I Built This, yes.
Yes, that's a great podcast.
I listened to the one about Eileen Fisher.
Oh yeah, I love Eileen Fisher. She is a goal guest to have on this show. So if any of you listening have connections to Eileen Fisher.
She was really just like cool to listen to.
Yes. So any of you listening that know Eileen Fisher or have a connection, hook a sister up because I'd love to interview her.
Yes.
Awesome. What is the one beauty product you can't live without?
Ooh, this is fun. Okay, do you know Beautycounter?
Yes, I love Beautycounter.
I was just introduced to it by a friend, and they have these face oils. I don't know if you've seen those, but I don't even know what they're called, but they're called like face oils. And you might think that sounds crazy. Why am I putting oil on my face? But it's the best thing in the world. Like I get out of the shower and you just like drop a couple drops into your palm, rub it around.
Yeah, it's almost like a serum. Like a serum.
Yeah, it's so nice.
Yes.
I love it.
They do feel very luxurious.
Yeah.
And they smell really good too.
Exactly. I love them.
Yes. Okay. So now these are either or questions. So you just tell me which one of the two. Okay. You ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
Left-handed or right-handed?
Right-handed.
Ooh, books or movies?
Ooh, books.
Travel by plane or by car?
Plane.
Would you rather visit Alaska or Australia?
Alaska.
Crushed ice or cubed ice?
Crushed for sure.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Tacos or burritos?
Ooh, it's a hard one. I'm gonna go with crispy shell tacos.
Oh, crispy shell tacos. I like
I'm a
it. You're
weirdo.
getting even more specific. No, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I respect that.
Thanks.
Italian food or Chinese food?
Chinese food.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee for sure.
Cake or pie?
Oh, it's funny. I'm a huge dessert person, but I'm not really a cake or pie person.
Oh, okay. I respect that. Like what kind of dessert? Are you like ice cream, cookies?
Pretty much anything. Like I love donuts.
Oh, donuts.
Love
Yes.
ice cream. I love cookies. I love candy, like gummy candy.
Yes. And because this is just top of mind because all of my friends' kids are selling Girl Scout cookies right now. Are you a Girl Scout cookie person?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
What is your like Girl Scout cookie flavor of choice?
Okay, I know everyone's gonna hate me because it's not Thin Mints, but they used to be called Samoas when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure, but I think they're caramel delights now.
So
the one with coconut.
Fun fact. I did not know this because I grew up and they were Samoas, just like the peanut butter ones were tagalongs.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right? So, because down here in North Carolina, they're peanut butter patties and they're caramel delights.
Oh.
So, and I was like, excuse me, what happened to tagalongs? And they're like, oh, those are the peanut butter patties. I'm like, no. I need tagalongs. So I learned that there are two, what do they call it? Like distributors or like two different factories that supply Girl Scout cookies. So it's regional. It's regional specific.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So like one Girl Scout cookie plant makes tagalongs, Samoas, all of that. And then another one makes peanut butter patties, caramel delights,
I see.
that jazz. And so it's like, it's regional. So because I had somebody up in Virginia were like, no, ours are still called tagalongs. I'm like, what is this like blasphemy? I don't understand.
So is tagalongs are your cookie of choice?
Tagalongs. Yeah, I do. Now I do love Samoas. Tagalongs are like, that's my vice. Like I don't care how good I've been on a diet. If somebody like puts a box of tagalongs in front of my face, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna eat the whole thing. Like,
well, peanut butter and chocolate, you can't go wrong.
I'm going big or going home. Now, and the other thing too is like people are like, what? You don't like Thin Mints? Here's my weird thing about Thin Mints is Thin Mints are fine.
Yeah,
as a cookie.
they're fine. That's how I feel too.
My preference actually for eating them is frozen.
Yes, definitely.
Put them in the freezer, and then I can only eat them when they're frozen. Like if they're warm, I'm like, meh. It's a waste of calories.
I totally agree, 100%.
Thank you.
I don't know what it is, but they have to be cold.
I feel so justified right now because people will be like, "What? Why don't you want to eat a Thin Mint warm?" And I'm like, "It's a waste of calories. I don't appreciate it. But if it's cold, and then you dip that bad boy in some vanilla ice cream,
oh, now you're talking.
I'm just saying." If you're not a Christian already, you might be born again. I'm just saying, like you might.
I like it. That's awesome.
It's a holy experience. But they make that Girl Scout cookie ice cream now.
Oh, I have not seen that.
Yes, I don't know which grocery stores carry it, but some grocery stores carry it, and it's like I think it's Breyers maybe that has teamed up with Girl Scouts.
That's genius of them to do that.
I know, but there's a tag-along ice cream that's like a peanut butter and chocolate ice cream with like chunks of tag-alongs in it. Oh my gosh!
Oh man,
heaven help me! Heaven help me! I'm trying like not to eat any sugar right now. And here I am sitting here having like a 5-minute conversation about Girl Scout cookies.
It's a withdrawal.
I know. And all the people listening to this podcast are now going to go find their nearest Girl Scout.
Girl Scout cookie ad?
I know. Hey, it's fine. It's top of mind. It's that time of year. But totally that's the other thing. I was talking to one of my friend's moms, one of my friend's moms. My friend, and she's a mom of a Girl Scout. And I was like, why? Because I was a Girl Scout as a kid too. Why do they pick this time of year? I feel like it's the worst time of year to be trying to sell cookies.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's cold, and then everybody's on a diet.
Yes, everyone's like trying to do New Year's resolutions.
Right. And then the Girl Scouts are like,
Girl Scout cookies.
Eat our cookies. I'm just saying. I don't know. Anyway, Abby, this was so much fun. I love that we can talk about everything from white privilege to Girl Scout cookies. So we really ran the gamut.
I like it.
No, but I really do think, I mean, all jokes aside, I think it's an important conversation to have, and I really respect your approach to it. And I think it's a conversation more and more people need to be having, because it's conversations like this that get people thinking and get people actually stepping out and making changes and, you know, approaching people differently and respecting each other's unique gifts and talents and the way that God made us so beautiful and so unique in so many different ways. And so I thank you for everything that you're doing. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the show and chat with me.
Of course. Thank you so much for all you do to, you know, shine a light on all these fair trade businesses and all these people who are doing really cool things. It's been really fun to hear other people's stories too. And you're just, I don't know, I love hearing your conversations.
Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
I loved Abby so much, and I loved how she was so open and willing to talk about difficult topics that we should be talking about. I really hope this episode got you thinking and was encouraging to you. Be sure to give Abby and Zuri Collection some love on social media this week, and I will have all of their links and information in the show notes. Don't forget to use that coupon code STILLBEINGMolly at checkout with Zuri Collection for 15% off your purchase. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you are a first-time listener of the show, welcome, welcome, welcome. Be sure to visit the archives for past shows featuring amazing entrepreneurs and business owners who are literally changing the world with their businesses. And if you're a regular listener of the show, thank you so much for tuning in and week out, and thank you for your support. Be sure to head on over to iTunes, Google Play, Radio Public, Stitcher, Overcast, or whichever podcasting app you like best, and make sure you are subscribed to the show. Clicking that subscribe button helps to make sure that you never miss a new episode of the podcast. And while you're there, would you mind taking a moment to leave a review of the show? Leaving a review of the show helps me to know what you're liking and how the show is personally impacting you. And if you share the show on social media, be sure to use the hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast or tag me at StillBeingMolly on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. This show is edited by my amazing husband and executive producer, John Stillman, and the music is by Mark Killian of Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening. Now go do something good with purpose on purpose.